Hello, dear friends. The famous song New York, New York, performed by Frank Sinatra, which is the most representative song of this city, and also the first one that comes to mind when we refer to New York, is not for parties now. Composed by John Kander with lyrics by Fred Ebb, the song says, among other things, start spreading the news. I'm going today to New York. I want to be part of it. My hobo shoes are longing to cross your heart. I want to wake up in the city and never sleeps and be the king of the hill, on top of the hill of success. My small town blues are fading away. If I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. Opinion piece. New York flooded. Rain floods homes and subways. Storm Ida leaves at least 42 dead. More than 150,000 people left without electricity. Hurricane passes through Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey. Silver and a heavy pressure despite dollar weakness. Taliban launch military operation against rebels in Panshir. European Union seeks greater independence from US after Afghanistan exit. Spain hosts more than 1,700 evacuees from Afghanistan, forming 320 families. Areas of New York's Central Park were flooded Thursday after streets turned into rivers overnight as a remnant of Hurricane Ida brought torrential rains to the area. Record rainfall from Ida flooded homes and subways in the New York area. The remnant of Hurricane Ida unleashed torrential rains that washed out cars, submerged the city's subway lines, and grounded airline flights. Hurricane Ida, which has caused widespread devastation in the southern US and downgraded to a storm, has lashed several northeastern states in recent hours, leaving at least 42 people dead due to torrential rains, flash flooding, and hurricane-force winds. 23 of the fatalities have been reported in New Jersey and 9 others in New York, mostly in the barracks of Queens and Brooklyn, including a 2-year-old boy. Water has flooded basements of buildings and homes, eventually trapping people. Authorities have called the rains historic and declared a state of emergency in New York. Most of the deceased are individuals who were trapped in their vehicles by the flooding. Hurricane Ida has left victims in its path through the states of Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey. In the latter 2 states, authorities declared a state of emergency due to flooding and the risk associated with the natural phenomenon. More than 150,000 people were left without electricity. Emergency services had to rescue people from their vehicles or from the subway. Several transport lines remain suspended, while hundreds of flights have been cancelled. Gasoline. US vows to keep gasoline flowing. Hurricane Ida is helping to alter the course of gasoline prices that are at their highest level since 2014. Oil and gas companies scrambled Thursday to get their offshore operations up and running in the aftermath of Hurricane Ida, and the White House authorized the release of emergency fuel stocks as the extent of the storm's damage became more apparent. Baton Rouge and New Orleans ports reopened after Ida. Most ports along the Gulf Coast reopened Thursday after lengthy closures due to Hurricane Ida, which battered southern Louisiana with 150 miles per hour winds that caused extensive infrastructure damage and flooding. Ida crippled gasoline distribution in Louisiana. As Hurricane Ida began knocking down transmission towers and destroyed water systems across southeast Louisiana, fuel tanker lines were already backing up at refineries when Ida slammed into the state, damaging several of the facilities and knocking out production at 7 refineries. Then came the closures of hundreds of gas stations that were hit by fierce winds, funneling customers to a few pumps that had power. Meanwhile, demand for fuel had skyrocketed. First, hundreds of thousands of people were evacuated by car, and then more than 1 million homes and businesses were left without electricity, many resorting to gas generators. The resulting shortages have created scenes of despair, anxiety, and violence at gas stations. Texas anti-abortion law. A law banning abortion at 6 weeks gestation went into effect Wednesday in Texas after the Texas Supreme Court failed to rule on an emergency petition filed by clinics in that state to block it. The regulation, called the Heartbeat Act, prohibits abortion when a doctor detects heart activity in the fetus, something that occurs around 6 weeks before most women know they are pregnant. Biden enlisted lawyer to fight Texas abortion law. President Biden said Thursday he's launching a whole of government effort, including the White House Counsel, to fight the new abortion law in Texas. 9/11 victims' families pushed the probe into missing FBI evidence. Family members of victims of the September 11, 2001 air attacks asked a government watchdog Thursday to investigate their suspicions that the FBI lied or destroyed evidence linking Saudi Arabia to the hijackers. Finance report. The Chinese are now pushing their agenda for the Great Reset. They are now setting up ports and preparing to shift the economy to the new system. When the system starts to collapse and people lose confidence, gold and other metals will react. That is when people will rush to abandon fiat currency. Silver is under strong pressure despite the weak dollar. Silver is currently trying to break below the support level at 23.80, while the dollar is losing ground against the broad basket of currencies. As central banks debate digital currencies, the UK aims to protect cash. As society accelerates toward its digital future, the UK is taking steps to protect the century-old technology known as paper money. Digital payments are becoming increasingly common, so much that even the world's central banks are debating whether to issue an electronic form of money to the public. The expansion of cash deserts caused an uproar in communities from Wales to Scotland, and officials have been looking for ways to shore up the physical infrastructure that is becoming obsolete, but remains vital to many people and businesses. Energy stocks rise. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq posted record finishes on Thursday, while the Dow Jones also posted a modest gain as higher commodity prices helped energy names regain ground, and the latest jobs data left investors reassured about existing positions. Oil rises on hopes of economic recovery. Oil prices rose more than $1 a barrel on Thursday, bouncing on optimism about global economic growth, despite crude inventories falling more than expected. Half of small businesses have job openings. Half of small businesses owners reported job openings in August, as finding qualified workers remains an ongoing challenge. US calls new maritime law imposed by China a serious threat to freedom of navigation. The so-called Maritime Traffic Safety Law, which went into effect as of September 1st, requires foreign vessels entering China's territorial waters to report their information, name, call sign, current position, destination and cargo to the Asian country's Maritime Administration Agency. Afghanistan. Afghanistan heading towards a failed state. Afghanistan has already taken, almost irremediably, the path to become a failed state, undermined by the effects of cyber war and jihadist extremism, according to Francisco Herranz. The Taliban is seeking international legitimacy, but its lack of experience in day-to-day political management, coupled with the deep economic crisis Afghanistan is going through, presage the arrival of dark clouds. The Taliban will not have women in their government. It's not a surprise. The Taliban have admitted that there may be no women among the top positions in the official government, claiming that they will be chosen to the basis of merit, raising fears of an administration with zero gender inclusiveness. Afghan women demonstrate in Herat for their rights. About 50 women demonstrated in Herat, Afghanistan on Thursday to defend their rights and keep up the pressure on the new Taliban regime ahead of the much-awaited presentation of the government. Taliban launched military operation against Panshir rebels. The Taliban opted for an offensive against the resistance forces concentrated in the Panshir Valley due to the failure of negotiations. Rebels hold out in Valley as Taliban set up government in Kabul. Taliban forces and fighters loyal to local leader Ahmad Massoud battled in the Panshir Valley on Thursday, more than 2 weeks after the Islamist militia seized power as Taliban leaders in the capital, Kabul, worked to form a government. Panshir is the last province to resist rule by the Taliban, who retook control of the country when foreign troops withdrew after 20 years of conflict following the September 11, 2001 attack on the US. Western Union MoneyGram resumed services to Afghanistan. Western Union Co. and MoneyGram International Link resumed online money transfer services to Afghanistan on Thursday to allow humanitarian activity to continue after the Taliban takeover. Pakistan strengthens border with Afghanistan. Pakistan said Thursday it has reinforced its 2,640-kilometer border with Afghanistan by building new forts and nearly completing a fence with the neighboring country, an announcement that comes amid the potential Afghan refugee crisis with the Taliban takeover. Iran unveils new three-dimensional radar capable of recording up to 300 targets at once. Iran's Air Force unveiled a new radar capable of intercepting up to 300 targets simultaneously during the anniversary ceremony of its Air Force. European Union hopes to coordinate how to deal with the Taliban for aid and evacuations. The European Union's High Representative for Foreign Policy, Josep Borrell, hoped Thursday that the EU can coordinate how to deal with the Taliban in order to deliver humanitarian aid and continue evacuations for those threatened there. The EU seeks greater independence from the US after leaving Afghanistan. European Union defense ministers discussed Thursday how to gain independence from the US in future missions, such as the evacuation from Kabul airport, in which the 27 were conditioned by Washington's decisions. Ex-British citizen pleads guilty to helping Islamic State murder hostages. Ex-British citizen Alexander Cotey, who was part of the Daesh terrorist group duo known as the Beatles, pleaded guilty in a US court to charges of torturing and murdering hostages in Syria, NBC News reported. Strong factory growth in August in Eurozone. Eurozone manufacturing growth remained strong in August, but supply chain problems caused by the crisis continued to restrict supplies of raw materials needed by factories, pushing up prices. European banks get a cash boost from ECB lending moves. Eurozone banks are making money from an ECB program that essentially pays them to lend, boosting their profits and helping to offset some of the cost associated with the continent's long-standing negative interest rates. European warning. The European Securities and Market Authority warned of a massive market collapse if the current trend of risky cryptocurrency investment continues, driven by high debt, the rise of mobile trading apps, and the influence of social media. Sweden rocked by 2 explosions overnight. A Swedish parliamentarian has said this country is starting to look like a war zone after a city and town saw explosions overnight, and one death reported amid an epidemic of gang crime in the once peaceful nation. Spain takes in more than 1,700 evacuees from Afghanistan, who formed 320 families. Spain will take in 1,723 of the more than 2,000 people evacuated from Afghanistan in August, corresponding to 320 family units, according to the final balance of Operation Antigo developed by the government. The average daily price of electricity in the wholesale market will fall this Friday for the first time in the last week to 137.7 euros per megawatt hour, although it continues to be the second highest price in history, only surpassed by Thursday figure. Spanish America. Lithium, a key element to make Mexico a power. Mexico is preparing to exploit and take advantage of lithium, an essential metal in the 21st century, used in the production of batteries for electric cars, cell phones, and computers. Among other devices, lithium is an element capable of catapulting the development of nations with lithium deposits. When water and rocks buried the Venezuelan town of Tobar, in quotes, 2 thunderclaps sounded, the sky lit up, the electricity went out, and the rocks came down. A story that is repeated in every testimony collected in Tobar, one of the municipalities of the state of Mérida most affected by the storm that occurred on August 31st and left at least 20 people dead. The US criticizes El Salvador's plan to fire all judges over 60, a legal reform in El Salvador that seeks to fire all judges over 60 that was approved by allies of President Nayib Bukele was criticized Thursday by a US official in the latest review of the president's agenda. Music. Zorba, the Greek composer, died at 96. Composer Mikis Theodorakis, whose music crossed international borders in his captivating score for the film Zorba the Greek, died Thursday, plunging Greece into 3 days of mourning. Legendary band ABBA returns to the stage after a 39-year hiatus. The Swedish band ABBA returns to the stage after 39-year hiatus. The stars of the band, Björn Ulvaeus and Benny Andersson, arrived in London on the eve of the presentation of new songs and the ABBA Voyage show. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.